Hello and welcome to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. This week, our guest, our NFL analyst and the senior producer of NFL Films, to tell us everything we're going to need to know about the Super Bowl, Greg Cosell, and the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison. Now remember, we love taking your questions, so write to politicswarroom@gmail.com for next week's show. We'll get to as many as we can, but don't forget to tell us where you're from. And for next week's show, I want you just to limit your questions to the concerns about an honest election. We're going to do a whole show next week on the threat to the election. You also can get text updates about what's next for Politicon and Politics War Room by signing up at Politicon.com. So tell your friends about us and remind them to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Please check out the link to our sponsor, Quince, and our episode show notes. We really thank you for supporting our sponsors because it helps make this podcast happen. James, amid a blizzard of crazy assertions on elections and ICE and Greenland, the dumbest thing that Donald Trump said this week was, well, let's move on from the Epstein sexual predator scandal. That ain't going to happen. Only half of what his Justice Department was ordered to release has been released. Some of the redactions still haven't been explained. And frankly, there is little trust in this Justice Department that it would be forthcoming. It's not hiding stuff. Now, I promise you, I would not have said that when Ed Meese or Bill Barr were Attorney General, as much as I disagreed with their policies. I think they followed the law. They just sometimes interpret it differently. But time and time again, we see how partisan Pam Bondi and her cronies are. Just look at how Epstein accomplice, convicted felon Ghislaine Maxwell has been treated. Now, we can only turn the page, James, on this despicable scandal when two things. Republican Congressman Tom Massey and Democrat Ro Khanna, who forced this issue, say they're satisfied. But even more importantly, when the victims, these courageous women who've spoken out, say they are satisfied. And to repeat, James, we ain't even close yet.
Well, I'll tell you how far away we are. According to the Justice Department, which I wouldn't believe, they say half the documents. And what you know, for what you saw, is only half. And also what you know is what's left is much more damaging than what you've seen. If you think what you've seen now is damaging, you have no idea what you have not seen. And it will, I got news for Pam Bondi or Todd Blanche or Trump or anybody. This is not going away. It's not going away forever because there's too much there that we don't know. There's so much there we suspect. And once the other 2.5 million pages or whatever it is gets released, or even the stuff that's been released, they're finding stuff every day in this. And they're going to continue to do that. And you wait until, we won't see it, but some version of Robert Caro is going to do an 8-volume work on this. I mean, this story, if you think about it, is utterly compelling, and it fits the public narrative that, elites do all these crazy things and they cover it up and they get away with it. And it's just not going anywhere. There's going to be movies, plays, books, songs, anything you can think of. This is not even 10% gone. They're just, you can't imagine what people are going to find out.
And you look at what the Brits have done, that former ambassador that they immediately sacked. Now they're going and they're trying to bring charges against him. They are not sweeping it under the rug. But right now, what the Republicans in Congress say is, but our great GOP members of Congress say, we'll get to the bottom of this. We'll subpoena Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Good.
Who are going to go next week. What are you looking for, James?
Oh, I think this is, I was quoted. So we're going to have literally one of the dumbest people in the history of the United States Congress. It's going to interview one of the smartest people in the history of the United States government. It's going to go so poorly for them. And all it's going to do is like kick this thing into the next century even, much less getting rid of it now. And we only got 74 years left to go. I think Comer is generally stupid. If you remember, Trey Gowdy, the great fucking intellectual giant, had 11 hours of
A lot
Hillary
smarter
Clinton.
than Comer.
Yeah, and he's twice as smart as Comer. And it can come up to
Right.
ask the same question 3 times for 11 hours. Why do you think it's going to be any better? If you think that President Clinton is not going to be prepared, well, you better have another thought coming. If the Republicans, they just open themselves, they lead with their chin. And boy, does Comer have a big chin, and boy, is it going to get smacked right on the chin. Yes, it is. Definitely.
Opening round. I want to make one more point about this. We saw a classic lesson of how a really terrific journalist should stand up to a bully. I don't know CNN's Caitlin Collins. I guess I'm an old timer because I've never even met her. But I watched that tape. She asked Trump at the White House about the Epstein victims. Instead of answering the question, which he doesn't want to answer, he insulted her. She didn't blanch or change expression. She just asked him again about the victims. The bully got vicious again and once again tried to insult her. Ms. Collins held her ground. She came across as a polished professional, and Trump came away as someone, James, that shockingly has something to hide.
Well, I think what Caitlin did, SEC girl, I might add, gal, I guess a woman, I guess I should say.
Woman, right.
Okay, whatever. I mean, talk different down here. This is an example. And so every other journalist that ever interviews him or interviews anybody else, this is the standard. And they're learning that. When she correctly anticipated what he would do and how he would change the subject, and she was just laying there. And this is the new norm. And this is not just Trump, because they won't get him to do any more interviews anywhere. This is like for every Republican lackey that goes on TV, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get smacked right in the mouth. And when you try to dodge, you're going to get smacked in the mouth again. If I were a Republican in Washington, I would stay off of television at all costs. I would subject myself to no interviews because you have no answers.
Yeah, and this guy, of course, can't do it because ego is such. I mean, it was remarkable when someone asked him about the awful story about Savannah Guthrie's mom, who I hope is okay. I hope they find her. Trump immediately personalized it. Well, rather than talk about the tragedy and the hope that the mother will come out, he said, I've gotten along with Savannah Guthrie fine. No, it wasn't about you, but that's who he is. And if you guys out there haven't seen the tape of Caitlin Collins interviewing Donald Trump yesterday, go take a look at it. James, unless you have something else to add to this, I'm going to change to a new subject, if that's okay.
That's fine.
This has been, for my business, this has been a traumatic couple decades. Over 2,000 newspapers have closed. It's really sad for local community and reporters who lose jobs when the Pittsburgh paper folds or the Chicago Tribune no longer is a serious newspaper. But there were 3 papers, I really believe, with national significance who made a difference when doing their job who made a difference for our democracy. The New York Times, the leader, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. The Times and Journal have adapted to serious challenges and are doing great journalism. When Amazon chief Jeff Bezos bought the Post a dozen years ago, he poured resources into it. He said, this is an American institution. It's about values. He supported a great editor and a really, really great staff. Paper even made money for a few years. But the last couple of years, his interest waned and his involvement waned. He has a new young wife and he is enjoying the global glitterati, but even more, he wants to curry favor with Trump. His company lavishly funded the comical documentary on Melania Trump, which I think is starting to really, really flounder. Profits and greed became more important to Bezos than the principles and democratic values that he extolled a decade earlier. The Post was losing money. So does that justify what Bezos did this week, pulling the plug, laying off hundreds of employees, and dismantling a great newspaper. No, he stopped investing. You don't build a newspaper. You don't try to turn something that's a loss into profits by downsizing, by getting rid of people, by firing people. That's been proven time and time again. Look instead what the Journal and Times have done. And he had second-rate people at the head of the business department, which caused more financial drain. But secondly, Bezos is worth over $250 billion. So losing $70 million a year is chump change. Not much more than he spent on his exotic Venice wedding last summer. With this, Jeff Bezos is going to be remembered as a brilliantly successful business entrepreneur, extraordinarily wealthy, who once had values and sacrificed them for greed and closeness to Trump. It really is a disgrace.
Well, first of all, you're right. The guy is the greatest retailer that ever lived, period. I mean, just look what they've done. Somebody else might have thought of it. All that talent they had to post, and it was a lot of talent, it's going to end up somewhere. And somebody is going to come in, and it won't be the Washington Post. I don't know if much you can reconstruct that, but they'll end up somewhere. And if I were that rich, if I had $250 billion and I had one of the most $250 billion, and I own one of the really defining assets in modern American history, the Washington Post, I mean, why would I give the goddamn money to the art museum when I could keep this tradition going? But being a guy, it's his money. He can do what he wants. But I'm afraid the Washington Post that we knew, or we hoped we knew, it is no more. And when I particularly remember great fondness, great sports page they had. I mean, they had great political coverage, all kind of legendary journalists that were there. And I look at people, that friends of ours like Walter Pincus, who, whole lifetime was there at the Post. I mean, Dan Baltz, people like that. It's a treasured institution as, frankly, it's no more. And it's sad to see. It really is.
Oh, I think it's the most tragic day, perhaps, in the history of American journalism, because it really was. It's always sad when papers go under, and there are a lot that are, but the Post was really in a league of its own. I mean, Ben Bradley, who no one who ever met Ben Bradley will forever forget that day. He was just that charismatic, that charming, that good.
I never heard about anything but stellar things about Ben Bradley. I mean, he was a compelling guy, but it's just changed, and people will think of something. And you're right, the Times and the Journal are hanging in there. And, there's other places, and something will come up. Somebody will think of something. At least I hope.
I mean, there are places to get news, no question of that, James. But for those people who, that was a central place, along with the Times and the Journal. And that's just a loss. There are going to some people who aren't going to be able to make do. And I also say Ben Bradley was maybe the greatest editor of the last 50, 100 years. But they also had Marty Baron did a terrific job at the Washington Post. And, for all the problems they're having, the new editor, Matt Miller, has done, a pretty good job with less resources. There was no reason to shutter the Post the way Bezos says.
Well, but he'd say, a lot of things about the Washington Post. I basically lived in Washington from 1986 to 2008. I was on the road campaigns and doing that. Basically, that was it. One of the, in addition to Sterling Sports Trade, they had a really good Metro section. And they would cover Virginia politics, which I was involved in. And Maryland politics, I'm less involved in that. They would cover it very well. They had a real complete newspaper. The style section was like one of the great cultural kind of fun sections of a newspaper you can imagine. It's a little bit of my hometown, and I hate to see what happened to the Post, and a lot of people live in metropolitan Washington. Trust me, it's a huge area.
Yeah, and actually starting even before this, but it was the paper of Woodward and Bernstein, and the investigative reporting over the last 50 years has been, perhaps exceeded or at least rivaled only by the New York Times and one or two others. And we're going to lose that. That's going to be harder to replicate. And so it's just it's a very, very sad day.
Pentagon coverage you've had, Tom Ricks is so
Right.
long. That woman, Carol Leoning, she broke some of the best stories I've ever seen. But
still doing it, MS Now.
Yeah, things happen, things born, things die. I guess all you can say. But it's dead.
Well, some of us will never view Jeff Bezos with anything but contempt, which I'm sure he could care less about.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Get your fashion right with Quince. Well, boy, when you say affordable, you lose nothing in terms of like quality of the clothes you wear. They can get most anything you want. It's very contemporary. It's very good looking. It's very affordable. And, this is a hell of a product they got, a real product.
Oh, it sure is. Because a well-built wardrobe, even in our advanced years, is about pieces that work together and hold up over time. That's what Quince does best. They offer premium materials, thoughtful designs, and everyday staples that feel easy to wear and are easy to rely on even as the weather shifts. Quince has the everyday essentials that we love, complete with quality that lasts, whether it's organic cotton sweaters, polos for every occasion, or lighter jackets to keep you warm in the changing seasons. The list of their hits goes on and on. One of our favorite things about Quince is that they work directly with top factories to cut out the middleman. So you're not paying for brand markup, just quality clothing. Plus, they only partner with factories that meet rigorous standards for craftsmanship and ethical production. That's important. You want to wear your favorites again and again so it feels great, knowing that everything is built to hold up to daily wear and still look good season after season. The fits are perfect, the fabrics are incredible, and the styles and options are unmatched. James, you'll look great in a cashmere sweater, and it's perfect for the crisp air when you're outside on your farm. And with this icy weather, we can all use one. And I think, for me, I think a favorite could be their luxurious stretch wool dress pants. They feel amazing. They're perfect for getting things done on the hill, meeting with a source, or just reading by the fire in style, watching the Super Bowl on Sunday. Check them out and see what your new look will be. Now's the time. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/warroom for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. We also have some good news. Quince is now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/warroom for free shipping and 365-day returns. Again, quince.com/warroom. The link is in our show notes. Hey, James, our guest is the Attorney General of the great state of Minnesota, which is going through some very difficult times these days. Keith Ellison. General, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to see you, man.
Tom Homan has taken over ICE operations in Minnesota. He said 700 personnel would be withdrawn. That means 2,300 are still there. Tom Homan,
maybe more.
He may look good compared to that thug who left, but this is a guy who was the architect of family separation before, and loves grocery bags with cash in them. You've met with him. Are you satisfied that they really are committed to change and getting out of Minnesota, or is this just cosmetic?
Let me talk to you in a very direct, frank way. As the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, I need ICE out. I need Operation Metro Surge over. I need to go back to status quo where we had around 80 to 150 ICE agents for the whole five state area. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
So so look, I'm going to absolutely not give one nanometer on Minnesota sovereignty. We are in court. We're going to fight these people, but I'm probably not going to be the one, crap talking this dude, because I need him to get these people the hell out of here. And so if he's willing to get them out of here, get them on out of here. Get them out fast as possible. They're doing no good. You're right about one thing. Noam didn't even talk to us. She wouldn't talk to us. On the other hand, Bovino wouldn't talk to us. So Homan's willing to talk. So I'm like, okay, despite all of the matters that you referenced, if he's willing to talk about how to get these people out, I want to talk about that. So I can tell you, as of right now, there is no discernible drawdown, not one. We don't see it. We're still getting massive calls. We're still having problems. We still have more than 3,000 here because you had some that they started out with.
Right. So, and they're still pulling guns at people in cars. I saw in video today.
They're still bullying people. They're still pulling guns. They're still bashing in car windows. They're still insulting people. Honestly, I can't tell you that something catastrophic like what happened to Renee Good and Alex Preddy won't happen in the next 24 hours because it is that Wild West. Now, these people are untrained. They went down to 47 days of training for some of these people, and the only reason they picked 47 is because that's the number of their liege lord. Trump, right? So I'm telling you that things are as bad as they were. I like the rhetoric of them drawing down. I haven't seen it. What they're doing is unconstitutional, illegal, and a clear violation of the sovereignty of the state of Minnesota, and it's got to end now.
And Homan didn't make any commitment to you as to when they're going to be.
He told me that he would like to see a drawdown and he'd like to do targeted enforcement to deal with the worst of the worst. And of course, I heard his press statement today. But I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to accuse him of being disingenuous because he said it. He's done more than others. I can say that I'm still waiting on some action, right?
Right.
I'm still waiting on some real movement. And this is unusual. I mean, we've never seen anything quite like this. And by the way, the state of Minnesota has a state statute that's been on the books for decades saying that if you are convicted of a crime and you're in the jail or in the correctional system, we do inquire about your nationality and we do report it to authorities in the immigration world. That's been on the books for decades. And so the fact that they targeted us, we find very strange, but they don't seem to, they have given us no tangible sign that they're backing off yet, though we're hopeful that they would get out of here immediately and all at once.
General, Renee Good and Alex Preddy were killed by ICE agents. We see it on, it's there. We can see it for ourselves. Do you think that those perpetrators will be brought to justice?
Yes.
And if so, I assume it will be a local prosecutor that would bring the action. When and what role would you play in any of this?
So under Minnesota law, the way that I get criminal cases as the county attorney invites me into the case or the governor assigns me the case. We only do like homicides and serious criminal sexual conduct, but we end up doing about 150 cases a year. Our criminal group is very busy. The county attorney in this case in Hennepin County has asked me, pursuant to a letter of understanding, that we would play a critical role in assisting in the prosecution. So we're partners with the county on this one. The county is still, driving the band, but we're all right there doing everything we can to bring the case to justice. Now, I think some of your listeners out there might be a little nervous. They've already messed around with the crime scene evidence. They've already tried to block us off from access to evidence. Will this case ever get to justice? And the answer is, we're going to make sure of it. we'll never quit. We'll never back down. We'll never stop. And I want your listeners to know that there's no statute of limitations on murder. And I also want them to know that there is no absolute immunity, as the vice president quite erroneously stated when he talked about the Good case. There's no absolute immunity. There's a qualified immunity. And basically, just for your listeners' benefit, under the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution, if a federal agent commits a crime in a state, that federal agent can say to the judge, I was doing my job and I was doing what was necessary and proper to do my job, therefore I should get immunity. And if the court is convinced that's true, they could win. But is it necessary and proper to shoot somebody in the head as they drive by? Is it necessary and proper to disarm someone and then shoot them about 10 times after they're on the ground? That would be for a jury to decide, or whoever. I'm not coming to a conclusion. As a prosecutor, I want to stay in the posture of this matter is under investigation, and I want to say everybody is innocent until proven guilty. But I will say that this immunity claim, absolute immunity, is absolutely wrong. And if I were these folks mixed up in this, I'd get legal counsel, because they might just need them.
Well, as you say, they mucked around with the evidence, but boy, there is a lot of evidence there.
Boy, oh boy, is there ever.
That video is just overwhelming. James Carville?
Oh, thank you, General, so much coming in. I'd like to remind people, we go back a little bit earlier.
We go back, don't we?
On the beamer of the largest synagogue in Minneapolis, and we've been friends ever since. So I'm very honored you would be on our show. So the officer that whatever his name is that shot
Jonathan Ross, the guy who shot Good,
right, and the whoever it was that shot this nurse.
Yeah, that guy was Ochoa and Gutierrez.
So you're saying that under federal law and Minnesota law,
right,
you're able to you would have to pass the original test for what they're doing and the scope and
that's right.
And employment. If you pass that test, there's no reason you can't try these people.
Absolutely, positively correct. And here's the thing: the federal government withholding evidence and refusing us access to the file. To me, that's kind of an admission that there's something to investigate here. I mean, they exonerated Ross before any investigation was done. Todd Blanche, who is the number 2 at DOJ, got up there and said, no, we're not investigating the Good case at all. Told the DOJ civil rights that we're not doing anything. And so they're not investigating the case. So why not hand the file over to the state so we can do our job? So quite honestly, I think that we will investigate this. I think there's ample evidence, and I think that this is not the first time you've had an imperfect crime scene and have had to, find probable cause based on other evidence.
Well, they got this guy, whoever where he is, they're trying to hide him. And I was suggesting about passing on to you that when you indict him and you got to find him, you can enlist the services of Dog the Bounty Hunter to track him.
Yeah, well, I'll keep that in mind. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know what, Mr. Carville? My son went to Tulane Law School, and he'd love to say he would see you out there, I don't know, taking a walk or walking a dog or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Is that one of your haunts? Yeah. So you live near St. Charles, near the trolley over there?
I used to live a block and a half from Tulane. And I'm always reminded of, I went to Minneapolis some years ago. I went to use the men's room, and above the urinal, they said, please hit urinal. Louisiana needs drinking water. So your son he's staying the whole length.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I tell you, when I was in a tough race back in 2006, Mr. Carville came to Minneapolis. He gave me some of the best political advice I've ever received, and I never forgot it. And it was like, always talk to people, whether you agree with them or disagree with them. You stay in dialogue with people. That's why I talk to Homan. Me and Homan probably don't have much we agree on politically, but we agree on one thing, that there needs to be a massive and immediate drawdown. I guess we may disagree even on the speed of that, but he's talking drawdown. I'm definitely talking drawdown. So we're open to the conversation. So I live by that. I talk to people, and I learned that from Mr. Carville.
I've been knowing you for a while, and you're an exceedingly charming man. But let me assure our listeners, this is
and good looking.
He's going to do his job. He may not do it with a scowl on his face, but he's going to uphold the laws of Minnesota for sure.
Better believe it.
If there been any, before I let you go, General, if there been any Republicans that have sort of surprised you on the upside, that have spoken up in Minnesota and said, "Hey, this is just not right. We can't. This is just not who we are."
None of them have surprised me on the upside, but they've shocked me on the downside.
Right.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's a story out right now about how our fellow Minnesotans have authored a bill to withhold federal funds from Minnesota until we give our voter file to the federal government.
Oh, come on.
So Tom Emmer, and Brad Finstead, and Michelle Fishbach, and Stauber up there in Duluth have said, "Hey, we're siding with the Trump administration to withhold federal money that Minnesota is due and owed to, and deprive the state of resources in service of Donald Trump." So you asked me if I got any good stuff to report. I would be more than happy to give Republicans proper credit for doing the right thing. Unfortunately, they essentially have lined up against the people hurting Minnesota, and I'm really shocked.
Do we have a congressional seat that we could pick up there anywhere, or is anything?
Well, let me tell you, I think that Tim Walz used to represent Southern Minnesota, down there, Rochester, Minnesota, where the Mayo Clinic is.
Yeah.
He used to represent Rochester, Mayo, like Mankato, and I think we could win that back. Actually, there was a really conservative guy, good friend of mine. He and I didn't have a lot of political agreements, but we loved to go hunting together. His name was Colin Peterson, and he used to represent Western Minnesota. And he was a Dem who and Fishbach took his seat. And then you remember Rick Nolan, awesome guy, God rest his soul. He used to represent the Duluth area. So the only seat that Dems have not held,
Jim Oberstar up in the Iron Range.
The late great Oberstar, who knew more languages than anybody I ever met. He used to represent that district up in Duluth. So I think we can win if we get our act together and really, really turn up the vote.
What Blue Dog Colin Peterson from Minnesota?
Colin Peterson.
Memory right?
Yeah, you are. Your memory is exactly right. Colin Peterson's still kicking around. Colin Peterson and I, we used to go turkey hunting. We went deer hunting a few times. He's a great dude, good on ag issues, knows a lot about it. Conservative Dem, to be sure, but he used to represent the 7th Congressional District. So I think you get the right candidate out there, and we can win. We can win. And so now is the time. Quite honestly, if there was a moment for us to do well and get some stuff back, this is the moment. And that's why I want the whole country to know that Emmer, Stauber, Finstead, and Fishbach signed a bill to deprive Minnesota of resources and to extort us to give over private voting information.
So before I let you go, one tough question. Are you going to have time, maybe 24 hours, to go do a little ice fishing somewhere in Minnesota?
I got to be honest with you, bro. Hey, man, I don't really dig ice fishing, man. I do. I like fishing when you can't walk on the water, right? I like, have you ever heard of a place called Cane River, Louisiana, in Natchitoches, the city of Natchitoches, Louisiana?
Sure. Absolutely.
So my mom is from there, right?
Oh, okay. That's where 12 Months a Slave was filmed in Natchitoches Parish.
Is that right?
Yes,
wow.
Correct. Yeah, it's one of the nicest towns in Louisiana.
I better check it out, man. So anyway, I like fishing on Cane River and in the summertime or the wintertime, but I don't like walking on the ice.
When you come to see Mama, I'll drop up in Natchitoches. We'll have a meat pie together. That's what
we got to have some Natchitoches meat pies, baby.
There you go.
I love it.
General, on the dull one in this conversation, I got a couple more questions. Congress is deciding over the next week conditions, if there are any, in order to keep funding DHS.
Right.
What are the 3 or 4 most important conditions that you think are essential to any bill?
Condition number 1 we need to make sure that the Kavanaugh exception to racial profiling is done away with and that it is statutorily written into the law for ICE that they cannot use somebody who's speaking accented English or they look Latino or any of that. That is a no. You can only go on people's behavior or some objective information to tell you that they might be somebody you could investigate. So we got to deal with that issue right there. Number two, and every time there's a crime or a suspected crime or certainly a death, there's got to be normal protocols. It must be the law that ICE does not investigate itself, and that the feds must work in cooperation with the state to do a full investigation. And then the third one, just ICE has to act like cops. They run around with police written over their stuff, but they don't act like cops. They don't say their name. They cover their face. They don't have big vehicles with insignia. They do a lot of things that no officer would ever do. They've got to be under the normal protocols of de-escalation, and that's what they've got. So those are three. I could think of more.
How about a judicial warrant, requiring a judicial warrant?
Oh, absolutely. Well, okay. They absolutely cannot be going into people's home without a judicial warrant. That has got to be made crystal clear. And that to me is like under the number 3 heading of act like cops. No
Right.
police officer is going to go into your house without a warrant. They can't go in. And by the way, what they call an administrative warrant is their own little paperwork. It's not a independent judge reading over an affidavit from a sworn officer. It's just, hey, let's go get this dude. It doesn't. It's crazy. It's that. So those are some ideas. And also, Noam says that they want to wear body cams. Well, let's start. Let's do that.
Well, there are some. I mean, look, some of their behavior has just been atrocious. There are some
Yeah.
people like Rep. Omar who said we need to abolish ICE. Do you believe in abolishing ICE?
You know what? I would say this. The behavior that ICE has exhibited, it is absolutely fair that we need to start over when it comes to ICE. Why in the world do we have an agency that combines anti-terrorism and immigration in one agency? We used to have the INS. I think that we could go back to something, because ultimately coming into the country without proper authorization is a civil matter, right? Fundamentally. And so why don't we treat it like a civil matter? And so you've got this Praetorian Guard that has a bigger budget than the FBI. I think that
the Marines.
Or the Marines. We
Right.
can have a civil conversation about what we're doing. Are we abolishing? Are we remaking? What are we doing? I don't know. I'm not going to get stuck in the language of it. I will say that there's a fundamental design flaw in that, right? In the agency. We need to separate immigration enforcement and counterterrorism and change. And that's the start, right? Where we should do. And then so then we go from there. We need to build in the protocols. We need to make sure that they're not doing things to collect people's data that violates their right to privacy. So I think that the agency was established after the most horrific act of terrorism in America, 9/11. We were understandably very shook up as a nation, but crises don't necessarily lead to great legislation. Usually in a crisis, we're trying to solve an immediate problem. And anybody who says, slow down, let's look at the due process angles here, is called, oh, you're not on board, enough.
Right.
And so I think that it is time for a big time remake, and you can call it abolish or whatever, not abolish. We need to redesign the agency.
James, you want to close this interesting interview out?
Well, yeah. So how are people, everyday people? I mean, I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to be in a city where you have, I don't know, 3,000, 2,500 or whatever federal agents running up and down the street and everything. How's the average resident of Minneapolis? How are they dealing with this? I mean,
Stressed out, man. Mr. Carville, they're stressed out. They're nervous. They're afraid. I was talking to some business people today, not just the big business people, but also the small business people. And they're like, we got people not showing up for shifts because they're afraid. We got customers who don't want to come in because they're afraid. There's a lovely place in Minneapolis called Mercado Central, and it is where you can go get any kind of great Latin American food you want. And it's like a ghost town in there. And I was talking to the big business guys, and they're like, look, this is overall hurting our economy. People are nervous. They're afraid it's hurting our economy. It's driving up our costs. People are the cops are pulling double overtime shifts around here. I don't mean ICE. I mean the real police. And we've worked so hard to build a great relationship between the policing community, and ICE is just interfering with that. But we got police officers who've been stopped by ICE, if you can believe that. So what I'm saying is, it's terrible, and it's got to stop, and it's got to stop now.
Well, I can't thank you enough, General. You're really in a tough job, and I think we're very fortunate to have you in a position like this, and we'll be following it, and hopefully somehow or another this ends relatively. But I'm not optimistic.
Well, our whole country is fortunate to have you fellas who have seen a lot of politics and a lot of things, sharing your insights on this stuff. I enjoy your show, and I appreciate it.
I never say no shit like this. I never thought I would. I've been around the world once in Arkansas twice, but I've never seen like an invasion.
Yeah, hey, this is wild, man. And what about the reporters getting arrested? I mean, Don Lemon had his case in front of a judge and dismissed twice for lack of proper cause.
He's a Baton Rouge guy. He's an LSU guy. His mother, his mother loves me.
General, we will let you go. Good luck with your dialogue with Tom Homan.
All right, now.
The National Football League is the gold standard of popularity. Every year, there are more and more so-called experts, analysts, handicappers, touts, etc. But there is no one better than the Carville Hunt annual pre-Super Bowl guest, Greg Cosell of NFL Films. Greg, thank you for being back with us. This is a fascinating Super Bowl in some ways. There's no Tom Brady. There's no Patrick Mahomes. In this Super Bowl, two teams that were given almost no chance at the start of the season, really kind of considered mediocrities. Who would have predicted the Seahawks and the Patriots? How did they do it? Are there any common threads to these two remarkable seasons?
Well, it's funny. You're right. I don't think it was either team was on anybody's bingo card at the start of the season. To me, and I you never know how a game's going to play out, but I think these teams in many ways are fueled by their defense. And we're not used to that in this era of NFL football, where the first thing we look at is the quarterback. Not that the quarterbacks are bad, but as you mentioned, Al, you don't have those big name quarterbacks in this game.
Right.
And I just think that they're really fueled by their defense. And barring turnovers or plays that you just can't predict, I almost feel like this game will be more of a defensive Super Bowl. And I don't mean it's going to be 10-7, but I don't think this will be a 35-32 game. I don't see it that way. You never know. I mean, you just don't, but I don't see it that way.
Well, the Patriots coach, Mike Vrabel, I guess is, famous for his ability to disguise his defenses, which I guess will be a key. Do you think the Seahawks are up to adjusting to that, or is that a matchup?
Well, I think every team, when they play Sam Darnold, looks to what we say in the business, so to speak, is change the picture pre-snap to post-snap. And I think every team tries to do that with Sam Darnold. So they will certainly try to do that. In fact, I think the Patriot defense in some ways is the most overlooked part of this, because Seattle's defense is so good in so many ways, and they've really been the focus with Mike McDonald being the head coach. He's a defensive guy, as is Vrabel. But I think the New England defense has really been overlooked. I think they have a lot of good players that are just not household names.
I take your counsel that this may well be a defensive game, and these are not Brady or Mahomes, but it's always a bit of a quarterback's game, and they matter. And I look at these two guys, both were high draft picks, But Drake May was he was third, but everybody paid attention to Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. He was almost an afterthought. And Sam Darnold would really fit the definition of a journeyman. He's been with 5 teams over 8 years, but they both had pretty spectacular years. What's your assessment of May and Darnold, Greg?
Well, they were both the number 3 picks in drafts.
Right.
I mean, they were thought of as talented guys. May I really liked coming out of North Carolina. He's big. He's got all the traits you look for. He's incredibly intelligent. I'm not surprised by his quick ascension to becoming a really quality player. Now, who knows how he'll perform in the Super Bowl? But you're dealing with 2 guys that are big. They're physical. They have good arms. I hate to use the cliche that they can make all the throws, but they certainly can. And they both have mobility. I mean, May this year, and people might not be aware of this because they might think of Josh Allen obviously Lamar Jackson didn't play all the games, but May had more quarterback scrambles than any quarterback in the league. That's a significant part of his game.
Wow.
We saw that in the AFC Championship game where he had 2 or 3 key scrambles for meaningful yards on a day when the pass game was just not there because of the weather. So that's a big factor. Darnold is in a perfect situation with a coach that comes from the Shanahan tree and Kubiak, who I guess is going to go somewhere else after the Super Bowl. But, he just needed, every quarterback, there's very few transcendent quarterbacks, Al. That's the thing. Everybody looks at quarterbacks. They all need a system. They all need to be coached. I've always been a big believer in coaching.
Right. Let me, slightly different subject. 15 years ago, the great Steve Sabol, who we both revered, and his NFL legacy will live forever. He told me 15 years ago that the 2 greatest coaches in the history of the National Football League were Vince Lombardi and Bill Belichick. Belichick went on, since Steve told me that, to win 3 more Super Bowls, 6 all told. And yet he did not make on the first year the Hall of Fame. I consider that that's an outrage. Maybe it's due to
Me too.
jealousy. Maybe it's because of the so-called Deflategate. But it really is a total. I mean, if Bill Belichick doesn't qualify the first year, nobody should.
No, I agree with you. And if people think that other coaches in the league, I think it was Jason Kelsey who spoke about this. He said that's a joke. Every coach tries to do those kinds of things where you glean information in different ways from other teams. So, I mean, to me, look, I'm not a voter. I don't get a vote, so I don't understand it. But he should be in the Hall of Fame. There's no question.
And should we reform that whole voting process then?
I'm always leery of talking about it because I've got a lot of friends on the committee and I don't like to, rip people. That's not what I do. But it's very hard, even for someone like myself, Al, who spends literally every day of my life watching tape. Unless you're a coach in many ways, it's almost impossible to really know about a guard or a center. Even someone like myself, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about that, and evaluating that for Hall of Fame, because this is a legacy. Hall of Fame is a big deal. And I know a lot of writers, they're not sitting and grinding tape. They're talking to people. Some call me and ask me my opinion because they know what I do. But certain positions are really hard unless you're speaking to people who coach the position.
Yeah, one thing, Greg, coaching is not a subjective thing, though. I mean, that's different. James Carville, take over.
All right, so Greg, they famously didn't vote Belichick in the Hall of Fame. Somebody didn't vote for Willie Mays or Hank Aaron. So, there's always, but
Right.
What do you say? So, should I be at all concerned that Drew Brees doesn't make it on the first ballot? I mean, if it's just goddamn crazy, I could see that happening.
Yeah, well, to me, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. The problem is, again, you can get into all kinds of discussions about what the process should be, but they only take a certain number of people every year, and that's the thing. The thinking I don't get, James, is, and I felt this way last year when Luke Kuechly did not make it, and I thought he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, is when people say, oh, he'll eventually get in. Well, you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not a Hall of Famer, in my mind. And you probably feel the same way. So if you're a Hall of Famer, you should be able to get in. It shouldn't be, oh, well, we couldn't vote for him because there were two other guys that we had to put in. That to me, I don't quite understand the logic in that thinking.
I think he's in the top 3 in total yards, completion percentage, touchdown pass. I mean, but at any rate, he's you get to this point where some of these people get power mad. So, Greg, let me ask you, let's just look forward for the next 5 years. What franchises do you think are in a good position to succeed over the next 5 years? I mean, just got organization, talent, draft pick, analysis, I don't know, whatever goes into what are 2 or 3.
Right. Well, I look, as Al said, it does at some point come down to the quarterback, even though I said I think this particular game might be more of a defensive game. I think you always have to start there. I think that we would all agree that the teams that have that guy are always going to be in the mix. I mean, this was probably an aberration season for the Chiefs in many ways, even before Mahomes got hurt. But you think that the Chiefs with Mahomes and Andy Reid are still going to be a good team. You'd have to assume that the Bills are going to continue to be there. I'm very anxious to see what happens with the Eagles right now. They're a team that I think going into this season, and Al, that might be close to your heart being a Philadelphian originally, but I think that the Eagles are a team that now there's some uncertainty there. There's a lot of changes with the coaching staff. Obviously the offense wasn't very good this year, but prior to this season, people would have said that the Eagles, James, are one of those teams that for the next 4 or 5 years, they're going to be a really good team, and that might still be the case. You'd have to assume, because they're a young team, that the Seahawks are positioned well. They're a young team. They've got a lot of really good players, and I guess people will now be aware of them. I'm really curious, James, to see what happens with the Rams. I think McVay is phenomenal, but Stafford had his best year, but he's 37. Yeah. So you wonder if how long that can go on. But boy, was he good this year. Those teams, the good teams with the really good quarterbacks immediately come to mind. There's always going to be surprises and teams that each year, look, like we said with the Patriots, no one thought they'd be in the Super Bowl. They've got a really good coach and a young quarterback, and who's going to be really, really good.
I think Jacksonville's pretty well suited. I mean, they got a good quarterback.
Maybe.
You think of him.
Yep.
And I tell you, the guy that the Saints hired as a coach, he is a good coach. That team could have folded. They won 4 out of their last 5. We actually might have a quarterback. I think you do. The early returns look very promising. And, they probably have some favorable draft picks coming up. I thought the team could have quit midseason. And they definitely did not.
It's funny you say that because I remember doing all my evaluations of college players, and I thought, and I was on record saying this, that Tyler Shuck had the second best college tape after Cam Ward. So I liked Tyler Shuck coming out. I was not surprised at how he performed this year. He's a very mature kid. He's a little older, but that doesn't matter. He's very mature. You could see that the way in which he played. I think they do have their quarterback, James.
So as to your defensive battle, not something that you pay attention to, but some people do, what they call the over-under is 45.5, which is pretty low. So,
right.
I mean, Vegas is taken into account, or assumes that the bettors will take into account this, that these are 2 pretty good defenses. And, 45.5, that's a 24-22 game that goes over, but that's not high scoring and sometimes in the NFL contest.
Not in today's NFL.
Yep.
Yeah, again, the one thing you can never predict are turnovers, things like that. Team gets a short field, they score touchdowns. There's always teams tweak. Teams do different things. They have 2 weeks to prepare. You're going to see some different things that none of us can predict. No matter how much tape I watch, I know there's going to be something different that each team does in this game. You just never know. But I think these teams are really, really good on defense. As I said, the Patriots are probably more unknown than the Seahawks at this point. The Seahawks are part of this new trend in the league that has become popular is not the right word, but that more and more teams are doing, and that's what we call big nickel, where they play with 3 safeties. And that third safety for the Seahawks is Nick Emanwari, and he's a 6'3", 220-pound kid who is a great player. I mean, I remember being at the Combine last year. He ran a 4.38 40 at 6'3", 220. And you're seeing more and more teams play this big nickel with three safeties.
Does the guy in the nickel, does he play like a center field? Does he roam some?
No, well, the way they use him in Warri, he plays almost like what they would call a Sam linebacker, a strong side linebacker. But the thing with him is, depending on the offensive formation, they are totally comfortable with him matching up to wide receivers man to man. He made a play last in the championship game on Devontae Adams where he matched up man to man and broke up a pass. They're totally fine with him playing man to man on tight ends. In fact, he's a tight end eraser, but he can also play in the box almost as a linebacker and be really effective in the run game.
That's a valuable, guy.
He's a special guy.
Albert?
Yeah, he's a special player.
Go ahead, Al.
Greg, a hallmark of some of these Super Bowls, more than a few, have been trick plays. The Saints onside kick to start the second half. The Eagles snap to a halfback who laterals to a wide receiver who then throws a touchdown pass to the quarterback. It's not a surprise if we anticipate it. So but what just, you got great instincts. What kind of things might we look for on Sunday night?
Well, I would say with the Seahawks, I think you'll see, and again, who knows, but I think you'll see something different to try to get Rashid Shaheed the ball, because that guy, he's one of the few guys in the league that I would call terrifyingly fast. I mean, he has ridiculous speed. So I think you might see something out where they do something with him that's different than we've seen, just so they could get the ball in his hands, whether it's throwing a deep ball, whether it's getting him out in space where the misdirection element of the play gives him a lot of room. But you're dealing with a guy that has terrifying speed. So I would, that would be one thing that I think could happen in this game for sure.
Well, you may have mentioned, you may have given the answer to the next question, but you can add some more because we talked a lot about quarterbacks and star defenders. But I was going to ask you about one player from each team that might just be a difference maker.
That's a great question. I'm not going to talk about the quarterbacks. Right. Obviously, that's a key thing. The quarterbacks. I think that Shaheed's an interesting guy for Seattle. He's not a volume guy, but because of that speed, he can be. Look, on the first third down of the game in the NFC Championship game, the Rams tried to match him one-on-one with press man coverage with no safety help, and they threw a 51-yard pass. He just ran by Darius Williams like he wasn't there. So, I mean, that sort of set the tone for the game. So he could be that guy for the Seahawks. I'm trying to think for the Patriots. Boy, I'll tell you one guy, and I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. One guy to keep an eye on, he's been phenomenal, is Milton Williams, the D tackle. You can even go back to last year's Super Bowl. He was dominant in last year's Super Bowl when he played for the Eagles. He's had a great year. He missed, I think, 4 weeks or 5 weeks with an injury, but he's been dominant in the playoffs. And he is really tough to block, and he's going to get a lot of snaps against the rookie left guard. I guess no one's a rookie now after playing this many games, but Gray Zabel is the left guard for the Seahawks. He's had a really nice season. I would say that's a matchup to watch.
Williams was great last week. Greg, you've been with NFL Films, the creation of Ed and Steve Sable, for more than 40 years. What's the big difference in the game today versus 1984, 85?
Well, I think you just have to start with the quality of the athlete. The athletes, to me, are just ridiculous. I mean, the way these guys move, it's just, I'm totally blown away by it. It's true in all sports, but I mean, obviously football is what I focus on. The quality of the athlete. Obviously, the game is very cyclical, Al, in terms of tactics and strategy. It's things that, what goes around, in a sense, comes around. It's because there's not 1,000 different things to do. So what happens is something gets added. Like I remember when it was big that team started playing with 3 wide receivers. You can go back to Bill Walsh and the San Francisco 49ers. And the only time they ever put a third wide receiver on the field was if it was 3rd and long, and that was seen as, oh my God, you're putting a third wide receiver on the field. I can go back to Air Coryell when Joe Gibbs was on that staff. and they drafted Kellen Winslow. And Kellen Winslow was kind of a freak for a tight end. And Joe Gibbs said, and he was the one who was responsible for this, said, why do we want to line him up next to the tackle and just have people beat him up? He's so athletic and such a great receiver. Let's split him out. Let's get him away from the bodies. Let's split him out. And then the defense is forced to put either a linebacker or a safety on him, and he was just too good. So there's always small innovations. I mentioned big nickel. That's something that would have been unheard of years and years ago. Things change over time, but some things just come back. It becomes very cyclical. The offense does things, the defense reacts. You go back to Buddy Ryan with that 46 defense, and it was phenomenal for 5, 6, 7 years, and then offense figured out how to deal with it. That's contrary to what many fans might think, Al, these coaches are pretty smart. I mean, I know a lot of them, they work at this 24/7, 365. They don't just show up and do things on a whim.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And if I were to pick a dark horse team the next couple of years, it would, believe it or not, be the New York Giants, because I think John Harbaugh is such a great coach. But, we'll see. We always come to this point where you and Steve blanch a little bit, and it's who's going to win. Your record is a little bit better than Steve's. And last year, you called the Eagles beating the Chiefs, which was a little bit of an upset. What's the scoreboard going to look like late Sunday night?
Well, the thing is I do, my NFL matchup show where I had to pick the winner. So technically I'm on record. So, and I picked the Seahawks. Now, I didn't have to pick a score on the matchup show. I don't know if you want me to pick a score.
We got to top the matchup. So you got to pick a score.
All right. I'm going to pick the Seahawks 23-20. Which I guess gets, I've never bet on a sporting event in my life, but I know James mentioned
if you bet New England, you'd win. It's 4.5 now. It was 3.5, and it went to 4.5, so that tells you that a lot of early money came in on Seattle.
And I guess James said the over-under was 45.5.
Yeah. You'd also have the under.
Okay, so I guess I go the under by 2.5, but I'll pick Seattle to win 23-20. As I said, barring turnovers and unforeseen things, I don't expect the game to be a shootout. I don't think it has the feel of a shootout type game. But again, you never know. Like, I mentioned Shaheed. You could have some big plays. Those things can happen. But I think overall, when you look at these two teams, the way they're structured, the way they've played all season, they're not necessarily shootout type teams, although they've had games like that, depending on the opponent. But I'm going to go 23-20 Seattle.
Okay, James?
So, I guess everything is local. So here is very much excitement because they announced that the Saints in Cleveland are going to play on my 82nd birthday in Paris. Do you see the league is moving internationally more and more? Do you expect that to continue? And do you think we'll get to a point where we play football games in Asia even?
I think they are. Again, I'm not part of those discussions, but I think just from what I gather from being part of films and I think that they're trying to expand as much as possible. It would not surprise me at all. Look, they already announced that there's going to be another game or two in Spain. That's been announced. So I think that they're continually looking to do that. And look, it does exceptionally well. It appears overseas, James. I'm sure you know that they love it. It does really, really well. Hey, at the end of the day, it's about the revenue, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that's the way of the world. But I definitely think the league is continuing to look to expand.
So the Seattle franchise, it might be up for sale.
Yeah.
You got an estimated number you think it'll go for?
Oh boy,
that's
not my area. I don't know what teams go for. Why you're looking to buy it?
No, I'm just like I just kind of like these valuations go up so fast for good reason.
I know.
It's just I'm finding.
Well, the league. I mean, look, what I am aware of are the ratings, and they're unbelievable. Right. I saw that the salary cap is going up by a significant amount. So everything is going up right now.
To make your point about the talent, okay, I've been watching football all my life. I can't tell if the left guard in 1970 I'd match up with the left right tackle in 2025. I have no idea. The one thing that I do watch is the receiving. It is so good, it's unbelievable. Right? Yeah, still catch the same football. And Boyd Dowler had to catch the same football as, you catch in a day. But the catches that they make they'd make that play 1 out of every 10 times. 25 years ago, they make that play 5 out of 10 times now, 6 out of 10 times. That's where you can really see the difference, I think.
Yeah. Well, this is a different sport, and I know, James, you probably watch college basketball.
I like college basketball.
I mean, I am blown away because I really like college basketball. I grew up in Queens, and I grew up 10 minutes from St. John's University. So from the time I was 5, 6 years old, my dad and I would go to all the games. So, and this goes back obviously many years, James, but I'm blown away by these freshmen. We were talking like 17, 18-year-old kids. The athleticism of these kids, isn't it? It's mind-boggling.
It's just stunning.
It's
stunning.
And
you see it, and you say, like I say, there's certain things that that you could. When somebody catches a football, is you got to catch the football 50 years ago.
Right.
Okay, the kickers, the things that you see, you can just tell how much better it is. And I think the big difference is just the speed on defense. I mean, it can close a gap.
Speed.
I think that's New England. I know that Drake May is a good scrambler, but I think that Seattle defense he's going to have a little trouble getting away from these guys. They're pretty fast.
And you could well be right. And then the athleticism of the big people is what blows me away. I mean, I look at Seattle, like on their defensive front, their 2 tackles, Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, the second-year player from Texas, and just the athleticism. These are big, big people. I mean, I've been fortunate in my career, be at training camps, the whole deal. And I'm sure you've been around football too and seen players, but now these guys are so big and they're so athletic. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, Al, well, that was a great show, Al. Thank you so much.
The only one of the past who I think measured up to any of them today was the great Jim Brown. I mean, Jim Brown was big, huge, and fast, and even no matter the system, no matter the year, Jim Brown would have been in. But your point is so well taken, Greg.
Well, and there's obviously certain positions, and quarterback's one of them. It's a very subtle, nuanced, detailed position. It's a disciplined craft. I mean, I think Joe Montana would have been great today. I mean, I think, obviously guys run more today. Years and years ago, as you guys know, it was frowned upon when quarterbacks ran. Michael Vick probably came out at the wrong time. If he came in the league today, he'd be viewed in a totally different way. When he came out, and I think, James, he was in the same draft as Drew Brees, if memory serves me correctly. But
could have been,
yeah. At the time he came out, I mean, he was viewed as, you can't play quarterback like that. He's just going to run around. You can't do that. And now, I'm not saying that coaches want guys just to run around, but we know that the athleticism is clearly viewed in a much more positive light than it was back when Michael Vick came out in about 2000, when in many ways it was viewed as a negative.
Yeah. Well, I think, James, we kind of gave Greg a big pregame hype as the best. He's proven why he is the best.
He's the best. He's the best.
Well, I could talk about this stuff, Al, all day, as you know. It's funny. We started by talking about Bill Belichick a little bit. When I did the book with Ron Jaworski about 12, 13 years ago, the games that changed the game, 7 Sundays in the evolution of the NFL, one of the games we did was when Belichick's Patriots beat the greatest show on turf. So I needed to talk to Bill Belichick. And, obviously everybody knows his reputation and the whole deal. So, and it was during the season when I need to have this conversation. And they actually played in Europe that season. So the Friday after they played in Europe, they were off, of course, the next Sunday because they had a bye week. And I had a 5:00 call with him on a Friday afternoon. And I'm thinking to myself, I just hope I can get him to answer these 4 or 5 questions we needed for the chapter, because obviously it was his defense against the offense. I needed him to talk about it. Well, anyway, we start talking. He calls me by my name after about 2 minutes in the conversation. I'm thinking, this is pretty good. Okay. And because I wasn't asking him about a game or anything like that, about, that season, we ended up talking for 2 hours.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Because he just started talking about the history of the game tactically, and he loves, that's what he loves, as I do. And I start to feel like, God, I got to get this guy off the phone. I'm holding him, he just wouldn't stop. We just had an unbelievable conversation for 2 hours, just talking about the tactical history going back to when he started in the league in the late 70s.
Nobody would have, a Wesleyan graduate,
and an Amherst graduate.
Right? Well, I knew you'd bring up the Amherst.
You have to.
And what was it? Was it his dad that coached at the Naval Academy? Yes.
Yeah, his dad was the coach of the Naval Academy, and he played at Wesleyan. I think he played offensive line. And the other coach who played at Wesleyan as well was Eric Mangini. He went to Wesleyan and played there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, though, and I think this is true in most sports, certainly true in basketball. There is a difference between the pro game and the college game. And I think Belichick is learning that. Nick Saban was not a great pro coach. And, Pitino failed as a pro coach. There's just a huge difference. Very few people can do both, but
I remember there were years, and you guys may remember this, when Alabama, it was Alabama, and they would win every game, and people would say, well, Alabama could beat the worst team in the NFL. They would have no chance against the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, right.
None. Yeah.
Well,
but that's what a lot of people say.
We have a chance every time we have on Greg Cosell. Good luck in San Francisco. We're going to be watching everything you said. And we'd love to talk to you before, but certainly we're going to talk to you 12 months from today. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much, man.
I love talking with you guys. Thanks so much. Great. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, now for the outrage of the week. I am alarmed at the Trump administration's arrest of former CNN anchor Don Lemon for filming a protest inside a Minneapolis church. They had to venue shop as earlier judges turned them down. But even more alarming is the case of Washington Post investigative reporter Hannah Nathanson, I think it is. The feds burst into her Virginia home, and under the charge that she had received leaks from a Pentagon contractor, the usually clueless attorney general alleged these leaks harm national security. I'm dubious. The federal cops took both of Nathanson's computers, her watch, and her phone, and they were directed to hold the phone. They directed her to hold the phone in front of her face and force her to show which finger unlocks it. Both Post editor Matt Murray and former editor Marty Barron called this a highly unusual invasion, a chilling illustration of this administration's disdain for a free press. This reporter has done incredible work on Trump's efforts to fire and abuse and change federal workplace rules. She obviously had great sources. That's, I think, what this Justice Department wants. The warrant authorizing this outrageous action sets limits. Does anyone believe that this Justice Department cares or will adhere to those limits? These are the acts of a police state.
Yeah, it is. I guess what I would say, disappointing. I'm sure that the vast resources of its owner, Amazon, and Jeff Bezos will be put to total use to defend this reporter and defend journalism and defend the integrity of shit. What do you think? I'm drunk?
Well, the only good news is there, whatever Bezos does, the law firm is Williams and Connolly, so she'll be well represented.
He will tell them to see that he pays them. He'll tell them to stand down.
Yeah.
I don't have. There's nothing going to get in this guy's way of doing anything, and I don't think that they're going to call Williams and Connolly and say, "Go to town on this. This is an outrage." I've amassed a great fortune, and I'm trusted with the awesome burden and responsibility of protecting the First Amendment. He don't give a shit about the First Amendment,
right? Unless there's money.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have, we like sports and we like matchups. So-and-so's matching up here. Sandy Koufax is matching up against Hank Aaron. Somebody's matching up and LeBron's matching up against, Kobe or whatever it is. And, I always thought the greatest matchup was going to be James Comer against Bill Clinton. But I think that's the second. I think there's a matchup that even eclipses that for its unevenness. And that is, I want you to get everybody sit down, and I don't want to shock. Mike Johnson has taken on the theology of Pope Leo. Now, you heard what I said. Mike Johnson, who was tutored by a man named Paul Pressler. Paul Pressler is Mike Johnson's spiritual godfather. Man, please, Mike, don't try to deny it because I got tape everywhere. Okay?
Didn't he run into some problems, James?
He had a little bit of an issue with young boys.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't stop. He was a great man of God. He was a great moral force. He was a great influence on Mike Johnson's life. But he just couldn't stop butt fucking young kids. And he died. It was recently. And his theological depth comes out of the First Baptist Church of Benton or Bossier or somewhere in northwest Louisiana. Pope Leo was, of course, educated by the Augustinians at Villanova. His spiritual mentor was Pope Francis. I tell you something, Mike, you do a lot of stupid fucking things. And I try to give you some leeway because you're just product of what you are. You should never, ever get into a theological argument with Pope Leo. And, of course, they're trying to justify breaking people's doors down and arresting people in Minnesota, separating children from their families. And this asshole is trying to find some theological justification of it. Then you ought to do the world a favor and just let people think you're dumb instead of speaking and removing any doubt of just how fucking stupid you are. What a Pope Mike Johnson versus Pope Leo, all right? Paul Pressler versus Pope Francis. What a fucking crowd these people are.
James, I am going to try to think of a greater mismatch, but give me a week. Give me a week, and I'll see if I can come up with it. But it's going to be a challenge. That is really a mismatch.
I don't know if I count. I don't know if you can come up with a better mismatch than that. But we'll try. We'll leave it open. Maybe somebody can, come up with something. God damn! Hey, how you have no self-awareness?
Oh God,
none. And he's spouting off some Bossier Parish Sunday school claptrap against, one of the most elegantly trained people in all of modern Christianity. But please continue.
Hey, over the next week, would everybody please send questions about any concerns you have or thoughts you have on efforts to steal the election this November, the efforts by Trump and some of his cronies to intimidate voters, to change ballots, to impound voting machines, that whole litany of things, and also questions or points about what you can do as citizens to prevent it, okay? Because we're going to get to everything, on that next week. Okay, James, we're going to a part of our program that we just love every week, our listener questions. They really do keep us on our toes. They are so smart and so good from all over the world, actually. The first one is from Matt in Portola Valley, California. I know where that is. My friend Walter Shorenstein, I believe, used to live there. And he says, we all want to be optimistic about the midterms, as you are, James, but the Cook Political Report makes an argument that it won't be like 2018 because, one, we're only a few seats down in the House, so the floor is already higher. Gerrymandering has already made districts far less swingy, and Trump won some of those big states, Ohio and Alaska, and others by 11 points. So, tell me I'm wrong or we're Cook maybe too pessimistic, because tell me you're right.
Well, I mean, Cook is right that cut down the number of districts. I think if you draw a line through everything, R+8 or down, you're probably going to be safe. I don't buy the Ohio, Alaska shit. The Democrats are going to win everything in Ohio. And I don't think Cook is like this. I mean, the people that do it are very smart, but they also have
They're the
to
best. Yeah.
but they have to be cautious. And
Right.
there's a little bit of a political Presbyterianism there. But what I'd ask my friends at Cook to do is look at the differential in Ohio in 2024 between what Trump got and what Sherrod Brown got. Sherrod Brown's probably the most overperforming Democratic politician this side of Amy Klobuchar, who I don't know how much, I guess, are they going to say the Minnesota governor's race is a lean D? But I think they operate out of abundance of caution. I don't know the number of seats, but I would bet on the high side, on the very high side. These election results are coming in. If you just look at today at the Quinnipiac poll, I bet you that Cook revises over the next 3 months pretty heavily upward, even in some of these districts that you thought was impossible.
Yeah, and they're always doing that. Dave Wasserman and company are the best, and as you say, they're being cautious now. But you're so right about Ohio. I think Alaska too. Travis in Austin, Texas, asks if Democrats do make these historic gains in November, will we see historic progressive legislation to correct course and fix this nightmare rather than just stopping Trump?
No.
Travis, you're not going to like this answer, but the answer is no. Basically, don't forget Trump will still be in the White House. There will still be, I am sure, even if it's the wipeout that we expect, and even if the Democrats do take control of the Senate, there still aren't going to be, anywhere near 60 Democrats. So what 2027 will be all about is accountability and looking at some of the abuses that we've seen where this Congress is totally forfeited. And I think that's important. And I think on some appropriations bills, they can change things, Homeland Security funding. They can make sure there's funding in there for Medicaid and dare Trump to veto it. But there's, if there's going to be a big agenda of some sort, that comes after presidential election.
I appreciate and understand where it's coming from. I got news for the progressive agenda. Win the election. Okay, they keep going, right, we're going to have a progressive agenda. You didn't win anything. You got to win, man. And winning starts with picking the most electable candidates that we can possibly come up with. But for between January 27 and January 29, investigate. You're not going to be able to legislate. Investigate. But I think that you're going to be surprised at how much Republicans are going to start to turn on Trump going into 2026, and they're going to really be looking for something different. I think that the political catastrophe that's facing the Republican Party or whatever it is that exists today is really underappreciated. And, I just, every time that I look at a poll, it gets worse for them, and I don't see it getting any better. In fact, if anything, there's a certain way you just can't get any worse. They're getting close to that number. They're getting very close to it.
I agree, totally. James, we don't usually repeat issues in this segment because they're so good, but this is one to do. Cheryl in Michigan is asking about, can Sherrod Brown win in Ohio? She doesn't think so. She thinks he's a worn suit, and she's given a thought to who could pull together enough people from the right and left, and she'd rather see LeBron James run in Ohio. What are your thoughts, James?
Well, first of all, but Sherrod not only can win, he's going to win. Anybody that doesn't believe me, look at 2024 election in Ohio and look at the differential between then Senator Brown and then Vice President Harris. And I understand it's a little bit traumatized that Ohio has gone so far in a different direction. It used to be the swingiest of swing states, but it come 26, Ohio is going to be blue. And plus we're going to do very well in the governor's race. We're going to win that. We got strong candidates. And there's just the strength of candidates that we have and the weakness of that candidates is something to behold. And you just, at a point, you got to factor that in. But I appreciate your question. I understand where you're coming from, but the sheriff's going to win. End of story.
Okay, Cheryl, you can sleep well tonight. John in Long Beach, California, wants to know, how are we going to get the truth out to the country when the right runs most of the media? Fox News, Twitter, Sinclair, OAN, Facebook, etc. John, that's really a pretty darn good question, because there is much more of a right-wing domination of the media today. They're CBS now with Barry Weiss running it, reporting to the Ellison father and son duo, all trying to curry favor with Trump. But there are places to get good news. The New York Times, sadly, it may not be the Washington Post anymore, the Wall Street Journal, places like the Atlantic does terrific stuff. The Bulwark, I read the Bulwark every day. So, if you want to look for it, John, you can get it. And, people say, isn't this a great threat if it's such a lopsided right-wing dominated media? Well, I don't worry about it as much. Don't forget when Roosevelt was winning, it was a total right-wing dominated media. I think if we have good candidates and there's a way to communicate. I wish it hadn't turned so right-wing, but I think there is some balance.
Yeah, I think the country is just overwhelmingly disgusted with Trump, and I think that a lot of the media, but the right, but they don't tell their people what's going on. And
Right.
if you look at Fox, you wouldn't know how much trouble they're in, and they're going to get their credibility hurt when they get their clock cleaned in this election. And they're a company, their business, their profits were just off the chart. I mean, they make a lot of money lying to their viewers. I can tell you that. And I think these people, a lot of people that watch Fox, they're not interested in the truth. That's not what interests them. They're interested in having a narrative that fits what they do. And as long as Fox gives them that narrative and doesn't worry about the truth, they'll be successful getting these people. I don't know what else to tell you.
James, next question is from Mike, and what is these days our favorite city, Minneapolis. We're all cheering for you out there, Mike. He asked, can you envision a scenario where Trump resigns after the midterms and Vance pardons him?
I do. After the midterms, a long time between after the midterm. I don't think there's any chance that Trump will be president on January 19th, 2029. And I hope he's alive. I hope he's cognizant, but he can't take the risk of a self-pardon not working. And Vance will do whatever he tells him to do. I would bet anything that Trump doesn't finish his term out. It might be, he might, when he gets beat like this and all of this happens and they start turning and there's more Epstein stuff, and then when the Democrats get back in, they start subpoenaing stuff, he might just walk away. Don't discount that possibility. He's an old man.
He really gets unnerved. Yeah.
He's not well. And he may just say, fuck this, I'm leaving. And can I tell you that that's a 50% chance? No. But can I tell you it's a 1% chance? No, it's more than that. He may just walk away. He may have to.
Yeah.
But the crap that he's going to get, and he will know, he will know how much people despise him, and I'm not sure he can live with that. I don't know, but I would bet.
I think it's remote, but I would not dismiss it. I don't. I'm hearing you.
I think it's likely he's not. He may. It's more that he just walks away after the election, but it's not impossible. His life is going to be so miserable. And you can anticipate one of these elections hitting, but you don't until you actually feel it and you feel the impact, and just the whole narrative changes. And that's what's getting ready to happen. He's very unfavorable. I think I'm right on the. He's now up to over 50, very unfavorable. You can't imagine what that produces.
James, next, Paul in Hollywood, Florida, said, although it's early, do you have and do I have any thoughts about a 2028 Democratic presidential ticket of Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin? That's a very good ticket. And I think it just shows how strong that Democratic bench is. I really don't have any reservations, really, other than the fact I'd kind of like to see one of those governors on the ticket one way or another. I think we have such impressive governors in the Democratic Party that it would be good to get one of them on the ticket. But I'll tell you, Slotkin is really, really impressive. And Mark Kelly has been, and boy, standing up to this disreputable Pete Hegseth, he's just enhanced his standing all the more.
But I said I'm going to be careful. I can't worry about what people say I'm going to say, so I only can say what I say. I said that I thought that J.D. Prescott, if I got a 12-1 bet on him, I would bet on him. And people saying that I endorsed J.D. Prescott. I said no such thing. I said I thought he was potentially a stronger candidate. I tell you why I think Mark Kelly, I have no idea if he's going to run. There's an old adage in American politics, and it's been true. It's not one of these stupid things people say. If this is true, he might be the next nominee. And that is the American public wants the polar opposite of what they had before. Well, if you want the polar opposite of Donald John Trump, let me introduce you to Mark Kelly. Plus, he's got this unbelievable story with his wife, his unbelievable heroism that he was talking about. That's a long way. I'm not saying Mark Kelly's going to be the Democratic nominee, so everybody calm the fuck down right now, okay? But what I'm saying is, if there is a market for someone who is demonstratively and completely unlike Trump, he might be the most un-Trump person in the country. I'm serious. So I don't know if he's even thinking about running, but if he does, he raised $12.5 million in a day after they attacked him. And, Senator Kelly, I don't know him. Maybe I met him. I can't know him that well. But he is to somebody like you or me or us, he is the embodiment of what it means to be a patriotic American. And he's going to have unbelievable respect all across the Democratic Party. If he runs, I think people take him seriously.
Yeah, I do too. And I agree. He is the perfect antidote to Trump. There are a couple others. There are others that are too. I think, Wes Moore probably is for sure. But that just attests to the strength the Democrats have. James, you're gonna love our final question. You're gonna love this one. I've saved this one for you. Travis in Hopkins, Minnesota says, James, if memory serves, did you not win a bet against Piers Morgan? When will you be enjoying that fine dinner and bottle of wine over in London? Meanwhile, next time you're in Minneapolis, I'd like to treat you to a stiff drink and a steak at Manny's. So you got an invite out of that. And
I love Manny's, man. I was there in August. Huh?
And you can brag about beating Piers Morgan.
Yeah, and also Jesse Waters owes me another. I had a bet with him publicly. I'll do Piers Morgan. I'll double. Let's double it on the over under 20 seats plus D after the 2026 elections, and I'll win that one too. My bet was was Spanberger plus 5. I think she won by plus 16. I don't think that right.
Certainly double digits.
Yeah, I would know it was high double.
Yeah.
It was way at the higher double digits. Might have been 50, but it was a lot. And it's going to be bigger. It's growing every day. Every day. Hang in there, America. Your countrymen are not who you think they are. They are repulsed by this. Just listen to whatever you do. Everybody tune in to our show next week. It's probably the most important show we're going to do because we're going to be talking to an expert on how they're going to try to rig this election. They're already talking about, one of the things I want to make a point is Trump says he wants to nationalize the next election. Well, dude, I got news for you. You've already succeeded. It's totally nationalized. It's all about you. You wanted a national election about you. You're going to have one. and sit there and get this living shit kicked out of you, because that's going to happen to you, Mr. Trump. You're going to get the crap kicked out of you, and all of you Republican House members, all you Republican senators up, all you Republican potential candidates, just sit there and get pummeled, because that's what's going to happen to you. You're not going to come up with a good answer. You're going to be embarrassed. You're going to be humiliated. Your legacy is going to be nothing. Your grandchildren don't want to have anything to do with you. You were part of this really extreme movement against the country, but I got news for you. The country's coming back, and you're not coming back with it. That's what's going to happen in November.
I think I'd quit right now if that's. I agree with you. Listen, you raised a very good. I was going to say, you talked about next week's show. We're going to have Michael Waldman of the Brennan Center on for the entire show, because what they're going to try to do, the threat is so grave. I don't think they're going to get away with it, but no one knows the issue better than Michael Waldman. They do fabulous work. And all of you out there, please send us questions. We had a few that came in this week that we're going to save for next week, but give us some new ones on the election, on the threat, what you think they're going to do, and most importantly, what you think you as citizens can do to try to stop it.
That's what we're trying to come up with. How can we as citizens, or this gentleman calling, all the people that are panicking about this, can we come up with something that you can do to involve everybody? And that's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, absolutely. James, before we go, I just want to pay a quick tribute to really a great American public figure, Lee Hamilton, who died this week. Lee Hamilton was elected to the House in 1964. I have never met anyone who knew Lee Hamilton who didn't have just enormous respect for him. He was the co-chair of the 9/11 Commission. He cared deeply about public service. He really did live a great life. So Lee Hamilton, rest in peace. You'll be missed.
He sure did. I saw him some years ago before the pandemic, and I was laughing, and I said, one day you're going to have a commission on commissions, because every time you needed credibility or something, I mean, he was the golden name, and he was a real thing. And, when you think of people like Lee Hamilton and you think of people like Donald Trump, it's literally important we do that, because you can know what we had, and now you know what we got, and we can get it back. We're coming home. We're coming strong in November of 26, coming stronger in November of 28. All the potential Democratic presidential candidates, get out there and run, show your wares. I would say this to anybody. The chances that you're not the nominee are greater than you will be, but somebody's going to be. And the more to get in, the better off we're going to be.
And all of you who aren't running, you can help. You can be poll watchers. You can help with the ballots on election day. They're trying to intimidate you, so you have a role to play too.
Yep.
So anyway, Lee Hamilton, you were a great American.
Right. He was 94 years old. My dear friend Matt Hurley, who served on the 9/11 Commission, just loved him, and he was a very patriotic guy. We'll miss you, but we're glad to have had you.
We sure will. Thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. As always, send your questions to us by email to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show @Politicon. Following this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you check out the link to our sponsor, Quince, in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting Quince, because when you do, sponsors like this help make this podcast happen. Now, to keep up with us, subscribe to Politics War Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And check out our Substack at politicswarroom.com. James and I are constantly adding new content, so go take a look. You also can find other shows you might enjoy on the Politicon YouTube channel, or when you search Politicon on your favorite podcast sites. Remember, please rate the show with a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with another show as we continue our War Room planning.